Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, we'll be talking about how every leader can influence a company's employee engagement. And joining us to contribute to the conversation is Ter Wal. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, would you share a little bit about your background with the audience?
Yeah, I would love to. I started my career 40 years ago as a corporate lawyer. So I was working in Social Security and labor law, and I was taking care of people who were disabled, needed to have financial support. And in the system in the Netherlands, then you get support by the government, 70% of your income. And what I noticed in the 7 years that I was working there, that we were always looking at the back end of the problem. Like you said, if mortality comes in, then we are there. And I loved what I was doing, but I was not working on prevention. I was not taking care of human beings. I was solving problems. Then I worked in healthcare, in a health insurance company. And then I found my way in 1995 in the consulting world. I was asked to support a national organization in this field. And I found out that we were focused on sick leave. How can we cure people back into work? And over the last 10 years, I changed from that side to more the front side, prevention and amplification, by making people stronger in their employment. So taking care of human beings before they get sick. And that's what I do. And what we notice by research, and positive psychology is working on it the whole day, it's that we need to take care of human beings. And that we don't see them as human resources that we can easily replace, but that we need to take care of them. And well, you're talking about leadership. Well, I think leaders have a big influence on engagement of their employees, and with that productivity and all that kind of stuff we can talk about. So yeah, leaders are very important in my opinion.
Well, let's back up a little bit and start at the foundation of employee engagement. So that's obviously been a term we've been hearing about for at least 20 years, saying that, the majority of the workforce isn't engaged. I've heard recently that we're actually starting to make slight inroads into that, and maybe that's actually improving a little, some of the statistics I've seen. But where do we stand globally in an engaged workforce? What does that look like?
The only organization who's really doing worldwide research is Gallup. And Gallup is doing the Q12 every 2 years. Just 2 months ago, we received another thick book of them about engagement in the workforce in the whole world. What we see that about 15% worldwide of the employees is fully engaged. And that means they have that energy, that thrive, that going. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to be that way. Sometimes it can be terrible if you have too many people that are that engaged. So it would be nice if we go to 25% of the employees fully engaged, and then you have a group of people who are fully disengaged. And that's in Europe more than the people that are fully engaged. So that's bad. We need to have more people engaged than disengaged in our teams. And in between is that group of people that are satisfied, they're happy with what they do, they come in time, they leave in time, get their money in time, and they have outside their work a great life with hobbies and sports and whatever. But in the workforce, they're not really engaged. And there are some parts in the world like South Asia, US, Canada, that have higher engagement, about 35%. But then you see that the fully disengaged people is higher as well. That's about 25%. So then you see that's culture. in the US, we know it, the American dream. If you can't make it, you drop out. Then you're fully disengaged. They harm organizations in a very impressive way. So we need to look after those people as well. In Europe, we can't fire them that easy. So you need to work on them. And that's what leadership is all about.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, maybe we talk about that a little bit, because it is around the world vastly different, employment law and being able to get rid of poor performers, or what that process looks like. And one of my philosophies is, people don't want to show up and do a bad job. So if they are doing a bad job, either they don't have the tools they need, or the leadership and the things like you're saying, or it's really just not a right fit job for them. So let's talk about, like, what have you observed then in the European workplace? Do you find that proportion being more people not in the right fit and you can't move them out, because that have a huge impact on the rest of engagement? Or do you see it that leaders aren't taking enough time, or is it pretty evenly split? Like what kind of are you seeing there?
To be honest, it has a lot of issues that results in poor engagement. So yes, sometimes people make the wrong choice by picking a job. And I think we should make people more accountable for it. Because if you make a wrong decision and you start in a position in an organization, that's your responsibility. You can't blame the company or your team or your leader on it. And I think in the last 30, 40 years, we forgot about that a little bit. So employees were protected, employers were the bad guys. No, it isn't. You make that choice. To defend those people, in the 80s, when I started working, only 2 out of 10 people found a job immediately. We had so many unemployed people that if you finally had a job, you started because you needed the money.
Yeah.
So, but that's not an excuse for 40 years later to get into a job. And especially in the current demographic situation, you can find the job that fits you. So we call it what makes you tick. What is it that you really love to do? Go and find it. If in an organization, in a team, a leader finds out that a person isn't on the right spot in his job, then he or she should start that conversation. Not blaming, not saying you have a poor performance. Try to do it in a positive way and say, hey, how can I support you? Because I have the feeling you are not in the right spot at this moment. How can I be of help? So that means, and it was one of your questions as well, do leaders have enough time to spend with their employees? No. I see span of control, one leader on 80 people. You can't be a leader of 80 people. It's impossible. Scientifically, we say 15 to 20.
I've heard 6 to 9.
Yeah. Well, in a professional organization, absolutely. On the other hand, if people have a higher position, like consultants, nurses, that kind of stuff, they can handle a lot of the stuff that they need to organize themselves. So you can set up a position that you say, hey, this is the room that you have to work in and take your autonomy and work from it. So then you don't need one leader on 6 to 9. So it works the best. But what we see, and you will see it as well, a lot of leaders have their own job as well. They need to do a lot of stuff. Oh, by the way, I'm the leader of a team as well. I think that should change. You are a leader, then you're there to support human beings. You're there to facilitate them, to make them stronger, to make them better, because then the organization will become better, will become graded, have higher productivity, less sick leave, and that kind of stuff that Gallup is researching. But if you are fully busy out of 8 hours, 6 or 7 hours doing your own job, and you need then support your employees as well, that's too little time. So I think about 60% of the time should be addressed to their employees and less being in meetings, because sometimes I see leaders who come in the office at 8, leave at 6, and they are occupied 80% of the time in some sort of meeting. Well, what are you doing there? You're not supporting the professionals that are really doing the job. And you're there to support professionals. Even if it's a cleaning lady, she is the professional and you need to support her. And that's what I see, that in a lot of organizations, we're busy talking and we're not busy with supporting the employees who are really doing the job.
I guess I want to backtrack just really quick before we move forward. You had mentioned employee kind of accountability to the jobs they select, and kind of, you know, owning your own, I suppose, destiny. And I you know, you triggered a thought for me, and I'm kind of curious how much culture plays. And when I'm not talking so much about global culture, but generational culture. So at least in a, you know, from my perspective in the States, you know, the generation, the boomers and the who came after that?
Generation X and Y?
No, the ones in between. Or maybe so anyway, like, you know, my parents and my grandparents, yeah, you know, you did a job and you were still engaged, even if you maybe didn't like the job, because there was a sense of, there's an element of life that's about work, and it's about, you know, earning money, and it's about taking care of family. And, you know, it may not be the world's best job, but you're content with it because it's fueling other things, and you go in, and a sense of duty even. And you know, you're finding with the, you know, millennials and the cuspers between Gen Z and millennials, and now even more, right? The Gen Xers and millennials, the cuspers there, you know, the ones born in 75 to 85, and then even the now Y, right? There's this sense of everything has to be fulfilling to me, right? They start to lose some of that sense of duty, and doing things because they should be done. I mean, I'm one of them. So I'm like, I you know, that's the whole reason, you know, I got into consulting, is because the jobs I had before just weren't working for me. But I own that, right? And I moved on. So I guess what I'm asking is, how much do you think that plays into an employee engagement? Because, you know, for me, when I didn't like a job, I'm like, I'm moving on. And so I made the decision and I did it. But some people choose more a victim route. I'm not happy, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So how much does that play, do you think, into the engagement problem?
It's absolutely there. I had a discussion this week. I think a lot of people that started after the Second World War, they had to rebuild the world, and they did it in their own small area, but you had nothing. So you needed to work, and you needed to work 48 hours, and you worked on Saturdays because you had to rebuild. My generation, Generation X, came behind, and we were taught the same stuff. My father told me, you need to work hard. And if you work hard, well, maybe you will be happy and lucky and you move on, but hey, do that job and keep going. And then we got richer, and we were talking more about values and company values. I call them non-negotiables, and your own personal purpose and that kind of stuff. And we taught the younger generations, so I'm not blaming them, and I tell them not to blame the old generation, because the new generation are standing on the shoulders of those generations that worked hard so that they could fulfill their dreams. So I have a daughter-in-law who goes for 6 months to Australia just to enjoy life and to find out what she wants with her life. And I think we could go on holiday 2 weeks. Do I blame her? No, of course not, because I'm happy that she can do it. But they can do it because their parents and grandparents made a world in which they could get that life. So
yeah,
I think that it changed the culture, it changed generations, and the youngest generations are looking at their own purpose in life. They want to fulfill their dreams.
mm-hmm.
And instead of having, I have my family, I need to earn money, it's more, how can I fulfill my dream? Because then I can support my family. So they turned it a little bit around from first the others, then me, to now me and then the others. And that makes leadership even more harder if you have 4 or 5 generations in your team. Well, you need to be flexible and know exactly how to address this kind of stuff. So in your program, yeah, this is about leadership. How are you going to work with those people? And how are you going to facilitate them that they can work together? Well, tell stories. Tell the story of that old generation that started, that had that life, and don't blame it, like you said, like the victim role. No, this is what we did, and we're looking to you, and we see the positive side. And how can you support us? But then you need to make time to have that discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've noticed, so our company was rapidly growing, and we've introduced leaders, more levels of leadership, and we're doing more of a 60-40, like we ask for them to do 60% of their job and 40% leading their people. And maybe we need to relook at that at some point, but I don't know that it's not innate to people what it means to lead and to help their teams. For me, it's almost second nature. And I think it's because I became so ingrained in it, right? From Scrum Master, which, is exactly kind of the job you're describing there. The Scrum Master's job is literally the care and feeding of their team. Like, you remove roadblocks, you solve the problems, right? And I've done a lot of I've kind of ingrained leadership into my whole learning for decades now. But not everybody's like that. So, how do we help our leaders help their people? Because I think, our situation is not unique where we're having to bring up our leaders. I think that happens in a lot of organizations. What do you see there?
Well, I see, and especially in the Netherlands, but also in Germany, when do you become a leader? When you are the best employee.
Yep.
Because then you can earn more money, you get to the next level in position. I was once asked in 87 to make that switch as well. I was a good lawyer and I could only earn more money if I became a deputy leader. And I thought, I don't want to be a deputy leader. I want to be that best lawyer. So we see in a lot of organizations, the best employee becomes leader or manager, and then I think they don't have automatically the skills to be a good leader. So then we should train them, tell the story. Some call it management development. I'm more in human development, because it's not about training the management skills, it's about learning them how human beings are operating and how they can facilitate and support instead of telling them. And the best employee who becomes leader is telling his employees what they should do, because he or she knows best. That's why they were the best. But then you're not the best leader, because you don't give them that space. And we always say it's about the ABC, and we add purpose to it now, but it doesn't sound in English. In Dutch, it will be the ABCD. A is autonomy.
Mhm.
You need to give people the feeling that they, as professional, are contributing to their own role and position.
Yeah.
So give them space to develop. So you need to back up a little bit and say, hey, you're the professional. Can I ask you, what do you need to make it even better?
Yep.
That's positive psychology. It's good. We want to make it better. And how can I support you to get in that position? The second one is belonging. Take care that people belong to the team, that they see it as a family, as a real team. That's a big role for a leader to facilitate in that and have campfire sessions where they can talk about their lives. And number three is competences. Keep training people in their talents, in the things they need to know. Take time to discuss that kind of stuff, because that's what we sometimes forget. But if you have that ABC, then engagement goes up. And so it helps if you support those people, you can influence more engagement. And with that, sick leave goes down immense. Productivity goes up with 20%. Customer loyalty goes up. Gallup has 7 keys described. And you can see that if the leader takes the right position, the team will perform much better. So ABC, that's what's really important.
Yeah, it's similar to what Daniel Pink says, autonomy, like you were saying, over your work and who you work, somewhat who you work for, and then
Yep.
mastery and purpose.
Yep.
Very much aligns with what you're saying. So what are some of the things, when people talk about employee engagement, as large organizations do, they always try to, maybe over engineer things. Oh, we need to have bowling night and this night and beer kegs in the office. I don't know, I've seen a lot of different things. Do you have what are your thoughts on what it takes to get an engaged workforce?
Well, it's not the things that we see online nowadays about the happiness, ooh, and take your dog and all that kind of stuff. That's the outside. That's the dress, but it's not the real thing. I think, and I'm supported by a lot of research from also the US and people like Sam Silverstein who talk about non-negotiables. The organization need to have a purpose, their why, they need to have a good mission and vision, and their core values need to be clear. And you can't change non-negotiables overnight. And if you select employees, they need to fit in with their core values in your non-negotiables. And I think, but with a lot of onboarding, we don't talk about core values. It's, do you have the right fit in your CV? What is your experience over the last 5 or 10 years? What is your studying program for the coming years? But we don't ask, who are you? And what is your purpose in life? Companies like Zappos in the US, they have on their website the 10 family core values, and you get 6 weeks to prove that you fit in.
Right.
When I heard that the first time, a couple 10 years ago, I think, by Tony Hsieh, I was so surprised that you could hire people in that way. I see companies starting to do it. Of course you will fit in, and otherwise we can train you. And especially with the current situation in the labor market, you can't have the people, we call it the sheep with the 5 legs, that fit in, that have it all. No, you can train them, but they need to fit in your culture, within your core values. If they do, then having plants and dogs and of gamification on the workplace, that's nice, but that's an outcome that isn't the purpose of the organization. So I think purpose and core values and aligning core values of the organization and employees, that's the core message.
Well, what about individual, more at the leaders then? Because obviously hiring, so there's you individual leaders obviously can control it to some extent, you know, finding the right people, but they may not be able to do the test an employee and then, you know, pay them to quit if they're not a good fit like Zappos does. Some of that might be out of their hands. So let's say people are already hired, you know, what are some things that leaders should be doing in order to, you know, influence engagement within their company?
I think the most important part is having a good conversation with every employee. And what we see is that most leaders only have time or make time to talk with people that have an issue. They don't perform right, they don't keep up with the KPIs, they don't fit in the team, there is a conflict. I always give advice to talk with the people that are the best in your team. Not because they are the best, but you can learn the most about the team by having a conversation with those people. Learn from them and take that, what you have learned, in your conversations with the others, and do it with all. Don't say, oh, I will do this. No, have a good conversation. Go for a walk. My advice is always, if you have a tough conversation, don't do it in the office. Go outside, go have a cup of coffee somewhere, because you're walking next to one another. You're not confronting with eyes. You give that open space to that employee that he doesn't need to look at you and in your face. So go for a walk for half an hour and just say, hey, how are you doing? How's your life?
Yeah.
Open questions and keep it generic, because then people can fill in what they want to tell you. So give them that freedom. I learned that when I was doing people with reintegration, getting them back to work, and then we had big programs, like you said, it was all organized, we had protocols. And I started walking with people alongside a river and just say, how can I support you? Because this is the situation. You need to go back to work. I'm here to support you. Tell me what I can do for you. And when you walk for 15, 20 minutes, then we had a cup of coffee and we walked back. By the time we got back to the office, problems were solved. Because people loved it, that they got that freedom to talk. So I would say to every leader, use that space. You have that time, you can create time, even if you can't change like Zappos and others. But you can do it in your own way and grab that freedom that you can have a good conversation. And if the team decides, hey, we need this or that to perform better, then it's the role of the leader to go to the next level and say, hey, this is what we need to achieve. And can you support me? Or go to the HR department and ask for support. But for me, the leader is the collector of ideas. And then he facilitates and supports the people instead of telling them. So yeah, for me, it's most important to have a good conversation. It doesn't cost any money, but you need to be trained to have that good conversation. We train them with appreciative inquiry, that method that you have an open atmosphere to have a good conversation with people.
So it sounds like, you know, a lot of high performance, or sorry, getting an engaged workforce or engaged team is getting the right person on the team, obviously, and then building a relationship with them and being able to extract information, support them, etc. And then you know, I guess you're mentioning maybe some team alignment by making sure you're spreading that information to the other people who need to know. Are there other things that help employee engagement that a leader can do?
Well, I think these are the most important parts, giving them that feeling of autonomy. I think it's underestimated still, because we tell people what to do. If engagement has to do with feedback, with support, with getting energy from the things you're doing. So that's what you can do as well. We call it the job demand resource model. It's worldwide accepted. It's created by two Dutch professors, and I work with one of them, lucky me, and they have an energy model that says, where do you get your energy from? Is that from feedback? Is that from core values? Is it from working in a team? So they know exactly, they can measure it, what is giving you energy, but also what is taking energy. And what you see is, if your role description isn't clear, that you don't have that obvious sense, this is who I am and what I can do, then it's the role of the leader to take care of it. So you can ask what is giving you energy and what is taking your energy away. And if you do that with a team, you will see where in the team energy is leaking. And then it's your role as leader to change it. So again, that's about using tools, but it's also about having the good conversation.
What do you think, how much does recognition play then in employee engagement?
I think it's like feedback. It's one of the most things. Celebrate success, whether it's a team or individual. The arm around the shoulder, if it's still allowed, but that is for me support. Telling, hey, you did a good job. And most of the time, we complain, you are too late. We don't ask what happened. So we have judgment instead of recognition, instead of celebration. You're totally right. That's one of the most important parts in giving energy, is if you're recognized as a human being and as a professional. And if you're giving that space that you can say, hey, this is what I like to change, this is what I like to perform. I don't like job crafting is one of the things that is part of recognition as well. You are an expert in a part, but I hate Excel. In my job, I need to work with Excel sheets. I need to create them. I hate it. It is costing me too much time, too much energy. So I have a colleague who loves doing it. So I call her and I say, hey, I need to work this out. Can you help me out? He said, yeah, of course, because she doesn't like to do presentations. So within our team, we do the same things within the organizations. But we have our positive and negative sides, and we help each other out. So within a team, still saying, this is what we need to do as a team. Give them the opportunity to do what they're best at. And of course, if everybody needs to do it, they need to do it as well, but recognize them for what they do best.
We've talked a lot about how we need to be the activities we need to be doing to help employee engagement. But what do you find, I guess, how do you know if you don't have an engaged team? What are some of those symptoms?
What we see, it's the negative side of what you see. You see that sick leave goes up. Medical sick leave is about 3%. And we see in smaller companies with a max of 10 employees, sick leave is about 2%. Not during Corona, but overall it's 2 or 3%. I work for companies with 1,000 employees and 10-12% sick leave. And you need to know, in the Netherlands, when you get sick, you get 100% of your income for 52 weeks, and then 52 weeks, 70% of your income. So the company is paying you while you're not productive. But on the other hand, the organization is taking care of you to return back to work. So we have that influence. And what we see, that a lot of the sick leave has to do with issues within the team, or private issues like financial issues, taking care of family. Somebody died in your family and you need to go back to work, but you don't have the energy to do so. So you see within teams the people that are not performing up to your standard, they have a problem with engagement. And that can be a lot of issues. And nowadays we see that 60% of all the employers have employees with financial issues. And I'm not saying that they need to pay them more, but maybe you should take care that there is a budget coach that can help those people to get out of the problem, because productivity will go down, mistakes will be made. People are not focused anymore on the work. They get more conflicts on the workplace. That are the negative effects if people are not engaged. So if a leader sees those negative stuff, go have a walk with that person, ask, how can I support you? Don't tell them you're not performing well, because that's negative. If you turn it around and say, hey, I see that it's not working for you at this moment, how can I support you? Because I want to be there for you. That's a totally different approach with the same effect. And it's a positive effect, because then people feel recognized, feel supported. They can tell their story, which 8 out of 10 times they don't tell to anybody. So give them that space, give them that autonomy again to tell their story. Can you always help them out? No, but by listening and saying, hey, I see what's happening, and hey, we need to move forward. So if you want to have a chat, please let me know, and give them a psychologist or a coach to have a conversation with. I don't mind, but don't let them be, because then they will go downhill. And then, like you said, the mortality will be on that individual and on the team as well, because they were part of that team. So help them out, talk to them. And I think that's what leadership is all about.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation. Would love to hear what 3 things you want to leave top of mind with folks.
For me, but you heard it in my story, we need to stop talking about human resources. That was nice 100 years ago with Taylor and McKinsey. Nowadays, we talk about human beings. And for leaders, for me, it's important that we know exactly what we're saying. So words matter. Like I said, change negative issues into a positive approach. Talk about human beings. Take your position as leader serious, because you are there to support and facilitate employees. You're not there to tell them what to do. Because I think a leader will thrive if his team is thriving and being at his best, and you will be the best leader. So help your people, support them, be there for them. I think those are the 3 things that are really, really massive important.
Absolutely. Completely agree, Paul. Well, how can folks learn more about what you do or get in touch with you?
I always say the easiest thing is type my name in on LinkedIn. I'm there with all what I do, and on YouTube I have a lot of videos about what I do, even animation videos about non-negotiables and alignment. So YouTube, Paul Ter Wal, LinkedIn, Paul Ter Wal. We are redoing our website, so I'm not sending them to my website at this moment, but you will find all the information, contact information on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being on the show today.
I love to be here. It was a nice conversation. Thank you.
And to our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.